Hi and welcome to the Homeopathy Health Show. I'm Atiq Ahmad Bhatti, a fourth generation homeopath with over 25 years of professional experience and practice in this field of healing. The Homeopathy Health Show is the online voice of homeopathy around the world, promoting and raising awareness of this truly unique system of healing, which is suitable for all ages, young and old. Every week I invite guests from the world of homeopathy to come and share their experiences, their work, offer insights, and essentially talk all things homeopathy. Why not visit www.liketreatslike.co.uk and click on the radio and podcast button to listen to the latest episodes. So let's begin today's show here on UK Health Radio, the world's #1 talk health radio. Hi, welcome to this three-part special of the Homeopathy Health Show on the subject of homeopathy in practice, a subject matter very close to my heart indeed. Now, I'm really thrilled to welcome my guests to today's show, namely, and get ready because it is one of those lists, from the UK, I have Naila Chima, who's Year 4 student at the School of Homeopathy. And then I have Harissa Mitrova from the Centre of Homeopathic Education. Welcome, Harissa. This is your first time. Technically, it'll be your second and third time because we're in parts 2 and 3. And also Sandra, who is a Year 2 student at, again, the CHE. Now, across the pond from the United States, we have Anindita Sinha, who is a graduate, again, from the School of Homeopathy. Hey, it's a popular school, I must say. From Australia, absolutely thrilled because it's so early in the morning to welcome returning guest Sally Sim, who is studying homeopathy with Remedy Academy. So welcome, Sally. Lovely for you to wake up so early and be here. Sorry about missing breakfast. I take full responsibility.
No
from
problem.
Canada, hey, no from Canada, Gulnaz Ismail. She's not from Canada, I do apologize. From Dubai, Gulnaz Ismail, and from Canada, the one and the only Jackie Turpin. Welcome. Woo, it's so exciting. I can't wait. What are we going to talk about? Oh, this is fun. Today, I have a special guest with me, and her name will go by Reina. That is her name, but we'll just mention the first name. And she is a survivor of stage 4 breast cancer, which had sadly metastasized into lymph and bone. And she is here to talk to us about her story. So there will be, I think we're going to start with that. But first, I'd like to welcome you all to parts 2 and 3 of the Homeopathy Health Show, which is called Homeopathy in Practice. Welcome, one and all.
Thank you. Morning.
Thank you.
Reina, welcome. It's an absolute honor and delight to have you on this episode. And I would like to dedicate this to you, this segment, very much. So I would like to call it Reina's story. And I would like you to maybe share how homeopathy has changed your life.
Yes, hi. Thanks, Atiq. Thanks for inviting me along. It's an honour to be part of this. And I'll explain. You'll see why in a bit. So probably best if I start with the background to the cancer side of things, as that will lead me into where homeopathy is going to come into it. It's been a long journey. So I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer back in December 2013. My daughter was 18 months old at the time. So it came as quite a shock, as you can imagine. And I went through the usual process. I had 6 months of chemotherapy and then a mastectomy, one-sided mastectomy, and followed by 5 weeks of radiotherapy, I believe it was at the time. The cancer at the time was estrogen driven, so I was put on anti-estrogenic medication after that once I finished all my treatment. And I was kept on that, basically. Actually, that's generally the way it works. Usually it's for 5 to 10 years of hormone therapy that follows. And I was, very carefully monitored. Every few months I was scanned, so I was lucky that they were keeping an eye on things for me. And then seemed to be doing well as far as I knew. And then in January 2020, I found out through a routine scan, basically a routine ultrasound, that the cancer had come back on the opposite side, but in the lymph nodes this time, in the axillary lymph nodes in the armpit. So yeah, that was unexpected as well. So they were just going to do lumpectomy. They were just going to remove the lymph nodes at the time, but I opted to play safe. I opted for a second mastectomy. I didn't want that risk of it sort of coming back on the other side. So yes, we did that, and I then had, I think it was this time, I think it was 3 months. I had surgery, then I had 3 weeks of radiotherapy. And they changed my anti-estrogenic medication because I think what generally happens is that the body builds up resistance to the drugs, and that's then where they say the cancer comes back. So it's not effective anymore. So they changed that. So then I was sort of in hospital, still going to hospital every month for blood tests, and this time it's for injections, which weren't very pleasant. And I just carried on as normal again. They decided not to give me chemo at that point. They tried to put me on targeted therapy. These were some new drugs, I think, that had come in between my first diagnosis and the second one. So they put me on these other drugs, but they didn't really agree with me. So I stopped taking them, and I just carried on with that. And I seem to be doing well until last year. So February last year, yeah, that was a difficult time. So February last year, actually, interestingly, I think it's a year. It'll be a year this coming weekend. I woke up one Sunday morning, I was getting ready to go to church, and I went to brush my hair, and I felt a lump basically on my left side of my head towards the back. It wasn't there the day before. I had long hair, so I, it's like you brush your hair, you touch your head quite a lot when you have long hair, and it definitely wasn't there. So when you have cancer, you're always on the alert. Any little change, any bit of pain, any niggle, even in the most bizarre places, you automatically think, oh my God, it's back. So that was the first thing that came into my head. But, you try to sort of be positive, and you think, oh no, it's fine. So I left it for 2-3 days, and it was still there. It was quite sore, and it was quite big. And I knew I hadn't hit my head, and I wasn't imagining it. So yeah, so anyway, I left it a couple of days, and then I contacted my consultants and to mention it, and they obviously said, go, come in straight away. And they did scans. They'd scanned my head, MRI, I think it was at the time. And yeah, they confirmed basically that it was tumor that had gone into my skull, into the bone. So yeah, that was pretty devastating, to be honest. Psychologically, I think once it's moved beyond, into another area like that, into the bone, and then also into the head, that's quite a big thing. So you don't know whether it's sort of gone into the brain or exactly what's happening. So that was really big. So the weird thing was that they decided they were going to start radiotherapy pretty much straight away the following week. And I went in for all the sort of baseline scans and everything that they do prior to radiotherapy. And then a few days later, this bump just disappeared, just like it had never been there. It was the most bizarre thing. And the doctors actually started questioning themselves. So they then decided, just to be sure, they were going to do a biopsy. So I had to go in, and they had to do a biopsy of the bone. So we did that. And anyway, they were right. So it confirmed, the biopsy confirmed that it was breast cancer cells that had gone into the skull. So then I had a week, I think it was a week of radiotherapy this time. it was classed as, I noticed on top of the form, it said palliative radiotherapy, which was really scary to read. That word hadn't been used. Well, I'd never seen that word being used for me before anyway on any sort of written documentation. And I was told, well, initially I was told that, the radiotherapy would sort it out, would get rid of it. That was my understanding. I'd been told that by a couple of different people, but actually, when I questioned a couple of things on the morning of the radiotherapy, my first session, I was then told that the radiotherapy might shrink it, but it wouldn't remove it. Those were the the words that we used. So that was quite difficult to accept, really, for me. To hear that wasn't easy. So we went ahead anyway with the radiotherapy, did that, and I think soon after I had that, I wasn't in a good place mentally, as you can imagine at this point. I'm a very positive person by nature, but yeah, I wasn't in a good place. And I am somebody, luckily, who has always sort of tried to explore the alternatives to allopathy. I've alongside, I've always been interested in sort of the holistic side of things. I qualified as a reflexologist many years ago. I never practiced properly, but I've always been interested in that. And so there was a bit of me that I started sort of reading up about things and thinking, okay, there must be something else that I can do. I'm not just going to put I didn't want to believe that was all I could rely on. And so I was talking to a lady at church on one of the Sundays. I'd gone to church. I didn't have a very good time there. I sort of walked out half the way through the service. The why is this happening? Going through my head. And anyway, I spoke to a lady I got to know subsequently really well over there, and she sort of said to me, "Why don't you try? Why don't you go and see a homeopath? I can recommend someone to you." And it really struck me at that point, because this wasn't the first time that this had been suggested. So a few years ago, actually when I was first diagnosed back in 2013, a friend of mine had had breast cancer before me. So she was in her mid-30s. I think I was 40 when I was diagnosed. And she had gone to see a homeopath in this country. And she's now back in New Zealand. And a few times I speak to her, because she did some life coaching with me, medical coaching. She was trained to do that. And she said, why don't you go and see my homeopath? That'd be a really good idea. I think it'd be really good for you. When you're ready, you should go and see him. And I don't know why, but I just never did. I looked him up many times. I planned to go make an appointment to see him. It just didn't happen. So when, last year, this lady at church said, why don't you go see my homeopath? I was like, okay, someone's trying to tell me something. This has to be a sign. And so she gave me Atiq's name, and that's how I came into it, really. I phoned him up, and and here we are a year later. A lot's happened in the last year. I'm so grateful to Atiq for the last year and for getting me through. Honestly, it's been amazing. Not just in terms of the treatment and psychologically knowing that I had this as my backup almost, but it was my mainstream. This was my mainstream. Everything else that was being done, I was going through that because I had to go through it. But just knowing that I had the homeopathy to back me up, really. And I was actually listening to these podcasts, that then I started listening, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is what I've been looking for, not just in terms of my own health, but I've always felt like there was something missing in my life. Like I said, I had gone down the reflexology route. I was looking for something that I could turn to, because I believe so much in our mind and body and everything being connected. And I used to get very frustrated, and still do, when I go and have appointments, and I know that everything's connected, and it wasn't sort of being acknowledged, and which is fair enough, And So yes, so and then listening to the podcast, and I was listening to everybody who was being interviewed, and each time there was a revelation almost. I learned something new, and it was for me, it was like there was this hope. I had this inspiration and this hope that homeopathy was giving me by listening to all these amazing stories that and experiences that people had had, with their patients or their own personal experiences of homeopathy. And it was just amazing. I can't even put it into words, to be honest. And I listened to these podcasts incessantly. And I've said this to Atiq a few times, and I think people will think I'm crazy, but when I was gardening, when I was going for a walk, whatever I was doing this past year, I just had had these going in the background. And I'd wake up and I'd feel really down one morning, and I just listen to this, and I would feel energized. Just felt this complete change in my energy. And it was actually the episode that I listened to where I think you interviewed some of the School of Homeopathy students initially. That was one of the first ones I listened to, I think. And that was it. That for me was just, this is what I need to do. I have to learn more about this amazing subject, this amazing form of medicine. And I signed up to the School of Homeopathy. So I'm in my first year. I think I'm just doing Unit 5. I do it remotely, so I do the home study course. And it's given me a new lifeline, just learning more about it and, understanding it more. And it's been amazing. It's such an amazing journey. And so going back to, obviously, the cancer side of things, I had the radiotherapy, as I said, in the April. I then had to wait 3 months before they would do any more scans. So I had my next lot of scans in the beginning of July. And it was good and bad news at the time. The good news, amazingly, was that the tumor in my skull had pretty much gone from what they could see. Bearing in mind, as I said, they said it might shrink it, it wouldn't remove it, but they were now saying that it just didn't seem to be there. All they could see was a bit of uptake from the contrast, which they thought was predominantly to do with the actual biopsy, surgery I'd had. But the head seemed to be clear, which was unbelievable news. The not so good news at the time was that it had spread. So it had metastasized to a lymph node, a mammary lymph node on the left-hand side, and into one of my ribs in my back on the right-hand side, towards my spine. So the plan then was surgery. So I had to have surgery for the lymph node. They removed that, which was quite big surgery. It was robotic, and I naively thought I'd had robotic surgery before, and I thought it would be quite straightforward, but it went well. But they have to deflate the lung and then reinflate it to access it, and it was quite big surgery. It took me a while longer to recover than I thought. That was gone. That was great. And then I was left with what was in my rib. So I got through the summer, I recovered from surgery, and then the plan was to start chemotherapy in September. At the end of August, so a few days before I was due to start chemo, they did another scan, so it's a baseline scan, pre-treatment. And I went in to get the results, and I was told it had gone. So whatever was left in my rib had gone. And this hadn't been treated allopathically in any shape or form. This was purely going to be treated through the chemo. There was no explanation for it. So I know what I know, in my head how that has happened. And I just think it's amazing. You might be asking why. You can probably see I'm obviously wearing a hat. So I went ahead with chemo. It was a very, very difficult decision. My heart was telling me, don't do it. But because my daughter's 12 now, and I know the cancer was very aggressive when it was diagnosed in 2013. The consultant had said to my mum, actually, in 2020 when it came back, he said they didn't even think they can't believe I made it, basically. It was so aggressive. So because of that, because I was now classed as stage 4, because my daughter's still young, I, rightly or wrongly, felt like I had to just do belts and braces so that she could never really turn around in the future if something went wrong, and said, why didn't you do it? but I went into it with a very different mindset because I knew that I had Atiq's, backup. I knew he was going to help me through it, in terms of the side effects and coping with that. And, when you have that mentally, that's a huge thing. So I approached it well the first time, 11 years ago, but I think I know I felt very differently about it this time. And I knew I'd get through it and I'd be fine and come out the other end. And I finished last Friday, so I had 6 months of chemo, finished last Friday. And I have my Lexior scans tomorrow, actually, my next sort of post-chemo scans. And yeah, this is my new start. This is my new way forward with homeopathy in my life, both as a patient and as a student. And it's really exciting. I'm really excited about it at the moment. So yeah, it's great. So being here to share, just to have been asked to share my story, and yeah, this is why I'm so honoured to be part of these podcasts, because they've been a huge part of my life this past year. And I can't thank you enough, Atiq, for sharing, all of this with everybody, with the world. And I think it's an amazing thing that you're doing. Yeah, I think it's fantastic. So the more people that know about it, the better, because not enough people know how amazing homeopathy is. And I'm so lucky to have finally experienced it. And it took the universe a while to get me here. I think it's been trying to get me to this point for a while, actually. So yeah, I'm here though. So there we go. That's my story. So yeah. So thank you for listening. And it can be done. So yeah.
It's been an absolute honor to be able to help you. And it always will be. So happy everything has worked out. So happy you're okay. So happy that you've got a new lease of life, which is going to be full of so much joy and happiness now. And you don't have to look back. You can look forward now, because you won't have these health challenges. And in the words of Spock, may you live long and prosper, from Star Trek. But hey, everybody, do chip in. What a wonderful story for homeopathy, right? For what homeopathy can do. And when we say it's life-changing, but it's also life-giving, is it not?
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you, Reina, for sharing that, because these are the things that keep us motivated, that keep us moving forward, especially us as homeopaths. All praise to allopathy, all praise to all the doctors and everyone, whatever they do. But to support anyone with anything that can be helpful is so important and vital at this very moment. They say we need to be professional, but us as homeopaths, we walk with the patient, we move along with them, and then we live with them. I am very emotional anyway. It's very difficult for me.
Oh, thank you. No, you're
Nice to me.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I'd like to pick up on that something actually, that, I am really grateful to the doctors, that have looked after me for the last 10, 11 years. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart, because as I said, they didn't think I was going to make it. And I didn't know about homeopathy back then. And thanks to them and, the allopathic treatment I had, as awful as it was, I am still, I did still, survive, make another sort of 10, 11 years. And I've seen, being able to see my daughter grow up. That was the one thing I said when I was first diagnosed. I have to see my daughter grow up. That was the first thing, and that's been my goal all along. And so I am really grateful to them. And the amazing thing that for me with homeopathy is that you can take it safely alongside, the allopathy. I didn't even have to question it in my head. I know that other certain other things, I think, some herbal remedies, that you can't always mix and match. But just knowing that there was something so amazing out there that you can take alongside, conventional medicine if you have to, or if you choose to go down that route as well, like I did as a for obvious reasons, I suppose. yeah, it's just amazing. It's just amazing that you can do that.
The
Yeah.
reasons are very, very valid, that they were very valid reasons. We have to do everything what we can do to see our children grow.
Mm.
And this is what I strive for. Like, we don't have to fight this pathy or this pathy. We can all work together for the betterment of the patient, for the betterment of the humanity. Why do we have to say this doesn't work or that? Whatever gives hope,
Mm.
whatever gives life, let us try that. Why not?
Exactly. No, that's exactly it. And also, I mean, what I didn't mention was in 2020, so it's like my cancer came back, as I said, in 2020 in January, and then obviously we had the whole COVID scenario thereafter from the March. But actually, later that year, I think it was September, October 2020, my husband was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and he had surgery at that point. But then about a year, just over a year ago, yeah, it must be just over a year ago, his PSA level started going up again, which they shouldn't have been doing that. And they were going up very slowly, but steadily. Every 3 months he was having blood tests. And and so, when I started talking to Atiq, I said to him, like, why don't you try as well? Why don't you start homeopathy and, see what happens. And yeah, and last December, I think it was, for the first time in over a year, his levels stabilized. So, they didn't go up, they didn't go down, but they stabilized. And that was huge because they were on the verge of starting radiotherapy for him in last month. And that's been put on hold. So that's another, another example, really. And then on top of that, we're keeping it within the family. We've got my daughter involved. So I think she was feeling left out.
Yeah, why not?
She wanted some of the sugar pills too. So yeah, I mean, she had well, it started off actually. She had a rash, didn't she, Atiq?
Yeah. Quite a bad one, actually.
Yeah, it was really bad. She suddenly diagnosed last May, I think it was April, May, with Henlock-Schönlein purpura, I think it's called. It's a viral rash condition. And it was horrific. It was the most horrific rash I've seen, all over her lower limbs, up to her sort of mid-torso. Her legs swelled up. She couldn't walk. She was on crutches to go out. She was in a wheelchair. It was just the most awful thing. And so I think it was her immune system was run down. She was so stressed and so upset by my situation. I mean, it completely finished her. I mean, emotionally, she was a wreck. And that obviously had an impact on her. So that's how it presented, I think. So I then sort of turned to Atiq. I said, please, can you help? Is there anything you can give her to sort of help with this? And so that's how we started with that. And that got better, quite quickly. Obviously, I've got nothing to benchmark it against because we've not had it before, but she seemed to recover pretty quickly from that.
That took about 10 days, didn't it?
Yeah, it
was
wasn't
really
very long.
quick for some reason.
Yeah, it was really good. And then I turned to something that was actually, everything apart from the rash, but obviously the whole cancer side of things. It's apart from what you can see on scans, because it's internal. You kind of, there's a difference when you see something visible, visible to the eyes. So my daughter had verrucas on her fingers for about, it must be about 2-3 years. And we could not get rid of these verrucas. They were on 2 or 3 different fingers around her nails. And we tried various over-the-counter remedies. We tried some other remedies, which someone else had recommended. But they're all like sort of salicylic acid based, not very nice things, which I was always not very happy about using, but there was nothing else. So she had those, and then I think it was in the June or July. No, it wasn't. It was a bit before that. It must be in the June. She suddenly developed this wart on the sort of inside of her nose, just on the nasal, just at the nostril, sorry. And it was awful. I've not seen anything like it before. It's called a filiform wart. I don't know if you've seen them. And this this thing just grew. I've never seen anything grow so quickly. And it's like a little tentacles coming out of it. It looks like a little mini octopus. And it was the most unsightly thing for her to have on her face. And you can imagine, we were worried about her being bullied at school, and you couldn't hide it. And this thing was just growing. So I turned to Atiq again. I was like, please, can you help?
Sorry, everybody. That- yeah.
It
Okay.
was just like, please, can we get rid of this? Because this is just horrific. So yeah, so that was the next thing. And this took, I think, it took 2 or 3 months, didn't it? I think we had to play around a little bit with the
Yeah,
remedies.
there was a change in between. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 or 3 months, but they went. I mean, first it was the one on the nostril. You could visibly see it shrinking. This was just the most. This was visible proof, because we weren't using anything on her nose, or on the fingers at that point. So it was purely homeopathy, nothing else. And you could see this shrinking on her nose. And then her verrucas went. And obviously they were there first and the wart was last, but it disappeared. Everything completely disappeared in front of our eyes. And yeah, it was amazing. Absolutely amazing to physically watch that happening. And she is just, I mean, she's converted. She's not well. As soon as she's got a sore throat or she's not happy, well, where's your first aid kit? Can I have some some tablets, your pills, please?
So you've got the next generation is in line
Yeah.
waiting, right? And that's
Yeah.
what we want, don't we? All of
Yeah.
us,
Totally.
keep it in the family, but make sure everybody else knows about it and spread the word. So really, thank you very much. And if anyone else wants to chip in as well, just for the listeners, you're probably wondering what remedy. So it was very individualized. So you need to take a proper case. But in this case, I can share the remedy was pulsatilla, which was a constitutional remedy, just for your information.
Yeah.
So please, all my other guests, please do, if you have anything to say or.
Hello, Reina.
Hi.
Thanks for sharing everything. It quite resonates with me because I've been diagnosed with breast cancer 4 years ago.
Wow.
But mine was in early stage. I was diagnosed with stage 2 triple negative breast cancer. And straight away, I've actually been on homeopathic treatment a few months before I've been diagnosed with breast cancer. And I just advocated for surgery. They wanted me to start chemotherapy because triple negative breast cancer is not hormone positive and it's the most aggressive type of cancer. So I didn't agree to the chemotherapy at that point because that was my worst nightmare to go through the chemotherapy and everything. So I said no. I went to surgery. They removed and they said, you haven't got anything in your lymph nodes, all clear, all the scans were clear. Then I said, I'm not going to go through the treatment. I'm just going to continue with the homeopathic treatment. 4 months in a row, my family started worrying that I'm going to die. The pressure that if you're not going through chemotherapy or radiotherapy, you're dying. And my oncologist was saying, you're not going to be here in 5 years. So I agreed to go in to start chemotherapy, and I only done 4 cycles because actually I didn't feel any improvement. It actually was bringing me down, whether with the homeopathic treatment between the surgery and the chemotherapy. I was absolutely fine, full of energy. I did have all my life back like never been before. So during the chemotherapy cycle 2, I've been admitted in the hospital with neutropenia, and they started putting me on antibiotics one after the other, one after the other. But my neutrophils, my leukocytes, they didn't go up. So I said to my husband, bring me the homeopathy, bring me the full pack of the homeopathy. So I started taking my homeopathic pills at the hospital, and I actually said, I just want you to get out. I can't stay here. I'm not going to recover here. I can see probably 7 days I've been in the hospital. anyway, they let me go out of the hospital and told me you need to come every day for a blood test. And within 3 days, my neutrophils, my leukocytes were absolutely within a range. So then I decided to stop chemotherapy and I declined radiotherapy. So it's for fear now. I'm just purely only with homeopathy and change of lifestyle as well. And I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine.
That's really encouraging to hear. That's really good to hear because I'm now triple negative as well because the cancer morphed from estrogen positive to estrogen negative. So I'm now triple negative. So I don't think there's going to be any ongoing, allopathic medication that I'll be on.
No, there's
And no, there's nothing. So, it's homeopathy
It is.
all the way.
I put all of my allopathic medicine in a bag to show the world that actually I didn't take anything of them and didn't suffer with any side effects apart from neutropenia. I've never vomited, I've never felt nausea, I've never felt any side effect. And
Yeah.
it's definitely due to homeopathy because it was side by side next to me. And I was in communication with my homeopath all the time when I was having some issues. And so far, 4 years in a row, I'm absolutely fine. Absolutely.
It's
That's amazing. I'm so pleased for you.
I was going to ask I was just going to hop in to get Sally on and just it's interesting, isn't it, Sally? Because here we've got prime examples of how I mean I'm talking about the accessibility and the overall applicability of homeopathy. So it can be standalone, it can be merged, or it can run in parallel, right? Two things work together for the sake of the patient, which is absolutely brilliant. It can also work as supportive intercurrent, but it can also work on its own, right? And that's how isn't that just a wow factor of homeopathy?
It really is. I think that people should be more receptive to trying it if they're in this sort of situation of, having to have chemo and radiotherapy and all the rest of it. Why, for me, if I was in that position, I'd be trying anything and everything. And I think, there's just so much evidence now that homeopathy can really be a fantastic support or actually the answer. I always worry that, when we go down the allopathic track, that we get better very often, as we can see, but the cause of the cancer hasn't been addressed. And I always wonder if that's why it rears its ugly head again, down the track, because we've removed the symptoms and the problem, the immediate problem, but have we really has allopathy the ability to get to the cause of it? And I don't think it has. And I think that's where, for me, that's where homeopathy comes in. Let's try and address the cause so that we don't have to go back down that track that Reina had to go, where it came back. And I personally have several friends and relatives at the moment that are not quite in probably Reina's situation, but certainly have had more than one bout of cancer. And I often think, oh, gee, I wish you would just be a bit more receptive to homeopathy and go down that track. What have you got to lose?
Yeah. I also find, it's like an analogy of if you've got a nice rug at home and you're vacuuming it, it's brilliant, isn't it? So you've got rid of all the symptoms, right? We're talking chronic case here, let's say. But then if you lift the rug up, there's always the bits, debris underneath, right? So if you lift it up and hoover it or vacuuming it, let me rephrase vacuum, so say the right word there, and then put the rug down, then it's really clean. And that's very much the homeopathic picture, isn't it? Because you've got the physicals and then you've got the mental, emotional, which is usually hidden under the rug, isn't it? And you need to lift that rug, you need to lift that mat or carpet or whatever you call it, and look under and find out why that's there. And if you treat the why, then the rest is history.
That's
What do you
really
think?
really great analogy.
What do you think, Sandra?
Yeah, I completely agree. And as I'm only year two student, And if I didn't know this works, I wouldn't be in it. Also, there can be a stream of doubt and negativity coming from other people. So hearing stories like this is just mind-blowing and so reassuring. And it just feels so good to know it works and I'm on the right path, and I can't wait to get clients.
You are definitely on the right path. Take it from me. I know what I'm talking about, okay? So let me pull in Nanindita as well.
Yes, I completely echo what the others have said. Two mind-blowing stories of Reina and Risa, both of them amazing ones. And at the end of the day, all of it is so inspiring, not only for us who listen, but more so for the people who have actually done this journey, been through this journey. For Raina, it has led her into amazing lanes where she is now herself learning about homeopathy and being a student of the same. So it holds so much of positivity for her. She doesn't fear the disease anymore, which is such a big thing. And I think the causa and causalis of it is that fear, which she has actually conquered, and this is what is going to be the new leads of the new purpose of life. So that's so beautiful. And the other thing that I also wanted to say is, I feel everything happens for a purpose. Maybe this was the reason of cancer happening in your life, Raina, because you finally had to find this path for yourself, and maybe, who knows, for a lot of others who would be benefited by you. So yeah, way to go.
Jackie.
Well, this is an emotional session. Ladies, I want to thank you very much for sharing your stories, because we need to continue being hopeful and wishful, because we believe in this medicine, but to see it at this level is really inspiring. So thank you very much for sharing. If I can ask, now that you've come to this stage, I don't know if you're far along in it, but is there anything you would have done differently, knowing what you know now, that you would help others that maybe be beginning this stage of a journey similar to yours? Is there something you would say or do differently that you could share?
Hi. I just wish I knew about homeopathy sooner. That's the one thing I did know about it. That's the weird thing, but I didn't know about it to this level. So I did actually use homeopathy years ago, probably about 20 years ago. I was having surgery for something, and there was a homeopathic pharmacy near where I worked. And I don't know, I must have read something in a magazine somewhere, I don't know, at the time. And I remember going there one lunchtime during work, and I said, "Oh, have you got anything? I'm going for surgery." And they gave me their sort of surgery mix. I think it was in London. And I took it. I took it diligently after post-surgery. But that was it. That I used it that one time, and then I didn't make the connection. I didn't know enough about it, and I don't know why, but I think that was the first time, ironically, so 20 plus years ago, the universe was trying to get me to homeopathy back then. I didn't get the message.
It went into spam folder, didn't it?
Yeah, it went into spam folder, exactly. And then as Anandita said, clearly I was, I've always said the cancer, ever since 2013, I've been saying it's happened for a reason. It's happened for a reason, and I didn't know why. And yeah, I had no idea why. And then I said, this is my same belief that this is what I was meant to be doing, and it took it took 10 years of it for cancer to get me here. I just wish there was more information out there for people, that they could, understand the benefits of it, that it can be taken alongside, allopathy if need be, that
I think, Reina,
Yeah.
with what you're saying, you see, the thing is the tide is not changing. The tide has changed.
mm,
Okay, it's just that people haven't seen it change.
mm,
big difference to whether it's changing or not. And with introducing homeopathy, the film, for example, it's reaching already, you know, hundreds of thousands of people, and it's going to be millions by the end of this year. And that's, you know, I was saying to the producers, I was saying, you know, this film is so important at this moment in time, yeah, because it's the only thing on cinema, or from a cinematic perspective, you know, as a film documentary, that can showcase the beauty of homeopathy, and that message is getting out there. And in fact, I think it's nearly been given the green light, I hope I'm not wrong, for a series. So that there's going to be a series on homeopathy. Now that's a big deal, right? This is not Modern Family, right? This is homeopathy, the series, right? So it's going to be incredible. But yeah, I think there's great strides forward. But we're nearly at the end of this episode, so I want to pull in Gulnaz and then Naila, just you know, to have a chat and give their.
I would like to say thank you to both the ladies first for sharing their journey. Quite emotional. I have a friend who's going through the same thing, and I've been trying to convince her so badly to go and see Naila or Atiq, but she says, yes, I'll do it, and I'll keep pushing. My sister had breast cancer, and she's okay, and it was caught on very early, so she does homeopathy, so that's a blessing. So yes, I think a lot more people need to hear your story and to see how homeopathy works in so many aspects of life, not just physical. So thank you so much. Thank you.
And Naila.
I'm just awestruck by all these stories. I'm always what homeopathy can bring to people's life. And thank you, Atiq, for being there for them at the right time, at the right moment, and you've helped them. Absolutely thankful to you for bringing the voice of homeopathy to listeners and anyone who is listening today. I'm sure anyone, your neighbors, in your family or outside your family, if you know anyone, just share the link of this podcast with them, and maybe you'll change their life. I just want this to be heard by each and every person so that this can be spread far and wide. Yes, go to your doctors. Yes, go do the chemotherapy. Do everything you can, but you can add homeopathy to it. That will bring hope and positivity in your life. Take the power in your hands, and it can be done.
Thank you so much. And we're at the end of this episode. And this episode was for you, Reina. So it's called Reina's Story. And we applaud you. We love you to bits. And we're always going to be here. This is a very beautiful group of people that are here. And I think you should connect with them. We'll talk about it after how. And, you know, it's just, it will give you a lot of reassurance as well along the way, you know. And I think it's, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story for this part 2 of a special called Homeopathy in Practice, dedicated to Reina, called Reina's Story. So thank you so very much. And we'll continue in part 3.
Thank you so much. It's been amazing. It's been a real honour.
I do hope you've enjoyed this week's episode of the Homeopathy Health Show. Please do support the show by clicking follow on my socials. Remember, the more exposure the podcast receives, the better for homeopathy around the world. You can find me on Instagram by searching for @like_treatslike, and on both Facebook and TikTok by searching for @like_treatslike. So let's promote the voice of homeopathy on radio and podcast around the world together. Don't forget to visit me online at www.liketreatslike.co.uk and click on the radio and podcast tab. Here you'll be able to see all the guests that have joined me on the show so far. And of course, you can stream on demand the latest episode to your mobile, tablet or PC. Until next time, stay safe and take care.